I used to say I didn't just build my house, I grew it. The live oak in my front yard wasn't just a tree. It was part of the foundation, the heart that held the hill together. But that didn't matter to the HOA when they came with chainsaws. They cut it down anyway. And 2 weeks later, my home began to crack apart from the inside out. It started with a letter cream paper polite tone, that fake sense of authority only HOA people can pull off. Dear Mr. Halter, it read as part of our ongoing efforts to beautify and ensure safety. I stopped right there. I already knew where it was going. Tree number 4 was listed for removal, my tree. The one my father planted before I was even born. The one that shaded the porch where I used to drink coffee with him back when the ridge still felt alive. I circled the line in red pen and wrote one word next to it. No. 3 days later, I showed up to the HOA meeting with that letter and a stack of county surveys under my arm. I'd been in that neighborhood 12 years, and they'd never liked me much, the ex-military guy with the barking dog and the unedged lawn. But this time, I wasn't backing down. Tree number 4 is within 10 feet of a shared easement, said Marlene. Calloway, the HOA president, peering over her glasses like I was a child interrupting adult business. It's 7.5 feet, I corrected, sliding the notarized map across the table. It's on my property. Cut that tree and you'll destabilize the entire slope. Marlene barely glanced at it. Our arborist disagrees, she said, cool and smug. I looked at her and thought, you have no idea what you're doing. But I kept my mouth shut. I'd learned that anger only feeds people like her. 2 weeks later, I woke up at 6:42 a.m. to the sound of a chainsaw screaming. I ran outside, barefoot, coffee still steaming in my hand. 3 men in neon vests were looping a rope around the oak's thick branch. Turn that off, I shouted. You've got the wrong tree. One of them hesitated, then pointed to a clipboard. We're here under HOA orders. Tree number 4. That's my land, I yelled. You touch that tree and I'll sue every last one of you. Before I could say more, a black SUV rolled up. Marlene stepped out, crisp blazer pearl necklace expression like she was about to prune a weed. Mr. Halter, please step aside. Absolutely not. The board voted, she said smoothly. This isn't personal. It's my house. It's a tree, Mr. Halter. One tree. The deputy she'd brought along looked bored. Sir, I'll have to ask you to stand clear or you'll be cited for obstruction. I stepped back, shaking with rage. I went inside, grabbed my phone, and filmed every second as they cut down the only thing keeping my home standing. When the last limb hit the ground, something in me cracked too. 2 days later, the first fracture appeared in my drywall, tiny but real. The earth had started to move. I sent a photo to the HOA office with a note, first sign of movement. More will follow. Their response, a fine, damaged exterior presentation. They fined me for the damage they caused. That weekend, Marlene showed up with 2 board members in matching polos. She stood at the edge of my porch, careful not to step on it, and said, "We reviewed your concerns. The arborist assures us there's no risk." "Really?" I said, holding up a photo of my crawlspace vent, now half an inch lower than before. "The slope's moving. You destabilized the hill." One of her sidekicks smirked. "You got all that from a vent." I stared him down. "I got that from 20 years as a structural engineer in the Army Corps. I've seen houses slide down mountains for less." They didn't reply. They just turned and walked away. That night I lay awake listening to my house creak, a slow, uneasy sound like the bones of something ancient shifting in its sleep. I started doubting myself. Maybe they were right. Maybe it was just paranoia, old soil coincidence. But deep down I knew better. My father used to say the ridge breathes through that oak, and now it was suffocating. I spent the next week documenting everything: photos, notes, moisture readings, weather logs. I wasn't just saving my home anymore. I was building evidence. Still, when I saw the foundation crack across the laundry room floor, I sat down in the middle of the water, pooling around my boots, and felt empty. Like the house was dying in my hands. The next day, I delivered a manila envelope to the HOA office. Inside, engineer letters, timestamps, videos. I told the receptionist, "Tell Marlene, this is the beginning." That night I called a lawyer. His name was David Mendel Silverbeard, gravel voice, reputation for burying HOAs. I gave him the rundown. He listened quietly, then said, "You've got a case. Property line violations, destruction, negligence, maybe even emotional distress. We start with $500,000. For the first time in weeks, I slept. Then came the real collapse. One morning at 3:17 a.m., a sound like a gunshot jolted me out of bed. I ran to the front door and froze. My porch was gone, completely caved in beams, splintered dirt pouring out like blood from an open wound. The slope had given way. By sunrise, I'd sent photos to David and Linda, the structural engineer he'd recommended. Linda arrived the next day, laser level in hand. After 20 minutes in the crawl space, she climbed out and said, "You've got lateral displacement 2 inches already. The ground's shifting horizontally. Without that root system, it's only going to get worse." I asked, "Can it be fixed?" She hesitated. "If it rains hard again, I wouldn't stay here." The next letter from the HOA arrived that same afternoon. It claimed I'd verbally consented to the tree removal. I read it 3 times, then laughed that low, broken kind of laugh that comes right before fury. They were rewriting history. "They're gaslighting you," David said when I called. "It's their standard play. Deny, deflect, destroy your credibility. But we've got proof. Let them dig their own hole." So I gave them a shovel. I posted every photo, every crack, every time-stamped video on the neighborhood forum with the caption, "What happens when the HOA ignores warnings?" The post exploded overnight. Neighbors replied with their own stories, tilting yards, cracked patios, shifting fences. Turns out, I wasn't the only one bleeding from their arrogance. When Marlene showed up at my door again, her tone had softened. "Mr. Halter, we saw your post. I think there's been a misunderstanding." I almost laughed. "A misunderstanding? You destroyed my house." Gary, one of her board buddies, stepped forward, hands raised. "Let's not escalate this." "Okay. You going public hurts property values." That did it. "You care more about your Zillow listings than the ground collapsing under us," I snapped. "You're about to find out what real devaluation looks like." A week later, we were in court. The HOA's lawyer, some smooth-faced kid named Rowan, opened with, "This is an unfortunate situation, but my client bears no responsibility." Then David stood up, calm, measured, deadly. "Your Honor," he said, the tree in question was 7.5 feet outside the HOA easement. It was cut without consent, and the consequences are written into the soil itself. He played the video me on my porch, yelling over the chainsaw, "Do not cut this tree. It's on my land." The courtroom went silent. 4. Buzz of is projector. Marlene tried to hide behind her papers, but David wasn't done. He showed the email, the one we'd found in a public records request. "Cut all flagged trees before Halter gets another engineer involved." The room gasped. Even the judge leaned forward. From that point on, the tide turned. Linda testified about the slope, the root system, the soil compression. She said plainly, had the tree remained, this house would still be standing. When the judge asked Marlene if she authorized the removals without verifying ownership, she stammered. The arborist assured us, yes or no. Yes, that was it. The air left her body like a balloon popping in slow motion. Then, as if fate wanted punctuation, a storm hit the next night. I got the call from my neighbor, the hill behind your house. "It's gone." I drove there in the rain, headlights cutting through the downpour, and saw it for myself. The slope had collapsed completely. Half my house hung over empty air. The rest was cracked in 2. Linda showed up in a county truck soaked to the bone and said quietly, "This makes the case airtight." And she was right. When the verdict came, the judge didn't mince words. The Whispering Falls. Homeowners Association, she said knowingly, authorized the removal of a structurally critical tree located on private property, resulting in catastrophic failure of the plaintiff's home. This court awards $500,000 in damages. Marlene didn't look up. She just sat there, pale and small, her pearls trembling against her throat. The reporters swarmed me outside the courthouse, shouting questions, flashing lights. One asked Mr. Halter, "What do you want people to take from this?" I looked straight into the camera and said I didn't want to fight. I just wanted them to listen to respect the land, my home, the truth. But when they wouldn't, I held the line. Because sometimes standing your ground is the only thing left when everything else has fallen away.